Hello there. I'm Dr. Autumn, leadership consultant, wellness coach, author, and I'm incredibly grateful to be your host of the Align Living podcast. I'm here to equip you with the tools, inspiration, and practical tips necessary to lead a life of wholeness and pursue greater shalom in your life and that of your families, teams, and communities. My mission is to empower you to lead from a place of holistic well-being. It's time to say peace out to the fatigue, fog, and frustration of living in a place that lacks abundant well-being. Join me as we embark on a comprehensive exploration of spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, social, and economic well-being, all within the comforting embrace of one podcast. Hey, good people, Dr. Autumn here, and welcome to the Aligned Living podcast. And today I'm so excited because I got to interview Alexis Browning, who's not only a dear friend of mine, but she is doing some amazing work as president of the East Division with a phenomenal organization called Apartment Life, where basically she's just day in and day out committed to helping build positive community in apartment communities across the East Coast. And what's so amazing about this work is it's engaging people to make loving your neighbor a lifestyle, right? And just addressing the loneliness epidemic, really, and talking about the value of community. And so she was moving and shaking in the medical field, doing some really great things there, but just through her life story, she tells you a little bit about a part of that where just the conviction for the importance of community in our overall well-being, what it means for our success, for our wellness, this pursuit of wholeness, with Align Living. Like we've talked about physical health and spiritual formation and mental emotional health, but social well-being is an important part of it. I looked at that just as equally as any other component when I was doing my dissertation research. And so take a listen. You won't be disappointed. Be encouraged, be inspired. So here's my interview with Alexis Browning. And just to add, listen through the very end because we have a little bonus clip on our dating advice for you all, which everything we talked about there is like translates perfectly to just the value of healthy community and what that looks like. So that was probably the most fun part of the whole interview for me, was getting to talk with her a little bit about that. So you get to hear a couple of gold nuggets from both of us, just some of our advice in that space. So that was fun. Anyways, enjoy the interview. Well, Alexis, welcome to the show. I am so excited to be chatting with you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on in the midst of your wildly full schedule, but this is going to be good.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I've heard about this podcast in the other parts of the world and just had to kind of jump on here. And just excited for you to have me and for us just to kind of talk a little bit about just what we'll talk about today.
Sure, absolutely. I had a little bit of break in this podcast, and if there was anyone to have on post my little break, it's you, because we have so many soapboxes we get to connect on and things we get to chat about that I think are so significant and relevant to the world that we live in today. But as listeners know, aligned living is all about the integration of all things that make up our wholeness, basically. And the pursuit of wholeness is my passion. And we've talked about on this podcast physical health and spiritual formation and mental and emotional health. But I haven't spent as much time tapping into the importance and value of community, or what I call social well-being. And I thought there was no one better to start talking about this than you. As you all heard in the intro, Alexis is a leader of an organization that really focuses on like building positive community and building valuable and life-giving community within apartment communities. And honestly, equipping and finding people who want to just as a lifestyle, make loving God and loving your neighbor just part of their everyday lives, which I think is so valuable. But I would love for you to just talk about that a little bit. You were like doing your thing in the medical field and then decided to lead this other thing in the nonprofit world where essentially like your whole life's committed to this value of building community and social well-being and what that means. So I would love for you, whatever you want to share about your journey, your convictions behind this, just tell us a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm actually going to start a little bit not in the US. I'm going to take us on a journey a little bit to Africa. And so, going back to kind of what you'd shared, I worked in healthcare, went to school for healthcare. Goal was to become a doctor, medical physician, and always valued just the human body. Honestly, I think science and how science works, and the we know the ways in which we impact how our body responds to things, and just the importance of that. And so was always the track, honestly, to do that and to go to school for that. And so I ended up going to Africa back in 2018 for a mission trip, right in the middle of Kenya, right in the middle of summer. So it was so hot, not an ideal month to go to Africa. For those of you who are listening, if you've ever been to, around Kenya, the people are phenomenal. Just you can, I would say, smell community there. I mean, just the way people interact. I mean, you would not think anyone doesn't know each other there, which is just amazing. From just driving in the cars, they're, honking the horn, waving. I'm like, oh, do you know that person? They're like, oh no, just like such a space. And the heat is blistering. So I was in Africa, was there for 10 or 11 days. And man, I just was overwhelmed by the positive well-being, I would say, of the people there who do not have what we have here. So again, for people listening, they don't have AC, they don't have Apple, they don't have TVs, there's no Roku's, like there's no just like normal, right, everyday interaction experiences in terms of just outside world like we have at the tips of our fingers. And yet there is a radical joy and life inside of them due to just living in community. And so I ended up going to an orphanage while I was there, um, full of little kids that have no idea who their parents are. And the sense of just tangible laughter, life, overwhelming, just I say positive, but just the balance that they had from just each other, just these kids that just kind of do life all day every day in this orphanage, it wrecked me. And I just was like, man, I have to do this somehow for a job. And so I say job, really livelihood, career, passion, just it, again, always instilled in me just this idea of, right, like our inner self and the health that comes from our human body. And yet that aspect of adding, people to that was always intrigued me. So just kind of like a perfect storm. And so was there in Africa, we left, again, a lot of just amazing experiences there for me to see at the front end of like, also what was really neat is that it didn't take much. I remember making sandwiches one of the nights we were there to take to the orphanage. And I was like, it took us 20 minutes to make these sandwiches. And it probably meant 10 years worth of work to these kids, that they just were able to eat a homemade sandwich. Some of them are putting them in their pockets. Just truly were just so filled with gratitude. And I just remember coming back and going, I've got to leave the medical field. Like I am in working in the hospital. Again, anyone's listening, if you're in the medical field, man, it is such a gift and joy and call to serve the sick. And I just knew that this aspect of getting to create systems, create operations within community was something I had to do. And so my friend was serving as a coordinator, apartment life coordinator, so those who live in the active communities kind of within apartment life, different apartments, they're spreading, just the good news, but then also, creating this community enrichment within where they live. And it just grabbed a hold of me. I was just immediately drawn to the mission. And I've been here 8 years. So ever since, just kind of the start of that. So that's really long answer to how I got here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I will ask you in a little bit too to
Yeah.
even expand upon just because of your passion for community and your faith, your passion for Jesus, your passion for the physical body and health. I would love for you in a minute. I have a different question first, but just to put in the back of your mind to tap into like what you feel community even like means to you personally and for other people and how it's influenced your well-being or in general like how it influences well-being. I would love to uh, tap into that because like what you witnessed, it was the integration of how community has impacted other areas of people's lives. But first, I wanted to just kind of piggyback on my most recent episode where I talked a lot about choices, because when it comes to, let's say, picking up the right thing to eat or drinking water, like all these things are choices that I've found in my work of sometimes people struggle with. So I dug into like the physiology with emotions and thoughts and everything behind choices. So with that being said, what I wanted to ask you about is I read a book quite a while ago, so I might not get this exactly right, but it's called The Art of Neighboring.
Mm.
And the whole premise of this book, right, was these two pastors went to a mayor of a pretty large city and said, "Hey, like we want to make a difference in the city. Like, what can we do?" And the mayor said, "Just be better neighbors. Like neighboring is this thing that even the mayor of the city identified was such a way to have an impact holistically on cities and individuals. But this full circle, it's a choice, right? Like we know it's valuable, but why do we struggle to create margin in our lives and make this choice to be a good neighbor and make time for community, make time for people? So I would love to hear from your perspective, like whatever you want to share, why it's a struggle, what we could do to be better, like what we could do to prioritize margin to make better choices around this space, like whatever you feel led to share on this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. We used to give in apartment life, actually, we used to give that book to our coordinators kind of when they first came in about like 5 or 6 years ago. So I just feel like we're
Mhm.
always kind of finding resources, you and I, that I think we align a lot on. And so I big fan of that book. So, answering your question, I think when you break down this idea of neighbor, right, and it, kind of I did some word study on neighboring a few years back when I started in apartment life. And it's this idea of actually proximity creates obviously kind of the foundation of neighbor. But what was really interesting about a little bit in our neighboring, they kind of go through this as well, as the proximity can be from an emotional, a spiritual, a physical standpoint, right? It can be expound past just I live next to you, but actually you and I, Autumn, who live very far away, we have a proximity just because emotionally we connect on a lot of things, like, and we're able to dialogue, so it can feel as if you're kind of close. So I think it's important, one, to grasp and understand that this neighboring concept does force vulnerability.
Mm,
You cannot be in close proximity and not be vulnerable. That could
mm,
mean you leave your front door open or you leave your garage open, or when you're going into your apartment, you maybe take the steps, not the elevator, or whatever, just to kind of not to bypass people, but you're wanting to be known. You're wanting to be seen. You're wanting to be loved. And so the struggle there would be, right? Well, we don't want to be vulnerable. It's
mm,
2025. I'm not interested in really sharing what's going on inside of me. I'm happy to tell you what I know, but I not really want to open up and kind of be vulnerable and share that, as well as it causes this sense of not looking inwardly. And so when we think about proximity, when we think about neighboring, that act of vulnerability, it causes us to actually have an outward focus versus an inward focus. And I'm just going to be real with the people listening, right? If you take a moment and think about what you did today as you're listening to this, wherever you are, like you probably did a lot of things for yourself. The
mm.
list that you did for others, for general population, probably, pretty short. If it is long, then email Autumn and we'd love to talk with you because you're one in a I think that it truly is we're naturally just created to just be inward, to stay inward. And so, man, it had to be about 6 years ago. It's actually really funny. I was a really bad neighbor. I was a really bad friend. I was going through a lot personally, and I did not know how to be vulnerable, really say, hey, I'm actually needing help. or I'm actually needing just someone to sit with at dinner, or I'm actually needing whatever, right? And so because of that, instead of just saying, hey, here's what I need, I actually just said, hey, oh, actually, I'm going to be I'm going to reject a little bit of the outward sensitivity, tender spaces. I'm just going to kind of stay inward, kind of, not seek vulnerability. And I think it makes it a struggle again to be known. I think it is a choice to want to be known, to want to be seen. It's a vulnerable choice. It's a bold choice, especially when we don't know how sure or confident we are in our own selves, our abilities, our thoughts, et cetera. And so, yeah, I would say kind of for me, kind of again, those two we're to answer the question again, struggle wise would be lack of vulnerability, fear of vulnerability. And then I think that desire to kind of just look inward, what will work out for me? What is it that I'm really needing? As opposed to kind of outwardly looking.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I want to expand on that a little bit because I think I've heard this said before. I think it actually might have been when I was working in not working but volunteering with the church and all their like outreach strategies, and I always thought, man, like small groups really need to get more involved in, like, it should be part of our process, our spiritual formation, to not just support one another, have that community and pray, but go out and serve. And I
Yeah.
remember one of the leaders saying, yeah, but so many people in my group are going through hard things, or like life is life and life is life.
Yeah.
And so my conclusion is kind of like, life is always life and things are always happening. And, you know, we shouldn't wait until we've got it all together before we go do this, because it's like the cart before the horse. Like, actually, by engaging in community, it actually benefits you when you are in your hardest place, or when you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel stressed out. So I would love for you to expand on that a little bit more in whatever way you want to, like how, when you have a lot going on, you're feeling overwhelmed, like even folks in leadership positions, right? Like they say it's lonely at the top a lot of times because you have 10,000 things going on and all these responsibilities. How does it benefit you physically, spiritually, emotionally, any way you want to look at it, to engage in community like now?
Yeah, yeah, that's really That's a really good question. Also I'm gonna go back to, right, like just the creation of the world. Like we just, we weren't created to be alone. I think when you think about the foundation of just who we are innately, I don't think you meet anyone who I day after day wants to be alone. And like what you mentioned, I think it's a good point. As a leader, I lead a large group of people and a large team, and there are just pockets of loneliness that come with that. And one of the things that I see benefit greatly when I reach out to my friends or reach out to even our team, and I'll say, hey, this is what's going on. It removes you from that room where it is just you, yourself, and I, with your own thoughts, your own beliefs, and you now have a synergy. You think about plugging something into the wall, and now you have a light, or now you have, a power to whatever. It creates a momentum and a synergy when you invite just one person in. You don't have to share with all 8 people. You don't have to share with your whole small group, but just saying to one. And I always, err on the side of like, hey, vulnerability is a gift. You don't have to share everything or how deep you're going through things, but even just to say, I'm having a hard time, you know, it's a good time and it's a hard time right now. And, just would love to share that. And so I've seen that show up in ways, like I said, some synergy for me to go, you know what, actually, someone does actually care. I'll reach out and say, hey, I'm having this hard time. And they'll say, hey, you know what? I would love to talk with you about that. I've seen connections form from that. So I may share with someone like, hey, in leadership, I'm having a hard time. We're having a lot of challenges on our team as I'm leading this team, and they'll say, oh, I know this person who could maybe talk with you about that. And so now I've built another layer of community just from a natural connection. And then the physical aspect of it is, I mean, we just wear stress and tension all over our body. And I know you are way
Mhm.
more further in just our aligned living in our body than I am. I'm still learning from you each day, but I will say that the stress and the tension, if you just actually sit and you go, hey, I'm going to actually release this and I'm going to share how I'm doing with someone, I believe your entire body just shifts. And there is like your nervous system gets to really be untapped. And you go, oh, okay, I actually was struggling with a headache the past 3 days and now I'm not. Well, it's not the Tylenol you took. I promise it's because you brought someone in. And physically, your body is again desired designed to desire belonging and to desire community. And I think you just see that physical change and shift even in your body, again, just from an openness to say, hey, I'm really needing something. Or even in celebration, it's not always just having a hard time. Something positive may have happened, and to invite someone into that, I just have seen, again, on the emotional stance, it's like now a party of two that gets to celebrate this versus, hey, this may not, you've heard people say before, this is a big deal, I wanted to share this. It's like, heck yeah, that's a big deal. Like, you were able to run a mile today or whatever that may be. And so just, again, inviting others on the journey with you. Man, we're not made to do this journey alone. And I would urge whoever is listening, like, get out there, like, find a person to be able to share in that with. So that could be, I'll shut up after this, but that could be, someone at the grocery store. I mean, I think it's just the simple fact you see a change in when you're working, even in the service industry, you say, hey, good morning, or hey, good afternoon, or I travel a lot, I'm in the airport, and there's a physical, visceral reaction when you just interact and engage with someone. They're like, oh, wow, oh, hi, good morning. So I think those are kind of things I would say.
Yeah, and sometimes like that's really good. And sometimes I feel like even what you said about the vulnerability thing, I sometimes feel like because, and I live in the DMV, the DC area, right? So individual success is like such a big thing. There's so much pressure around it. So I think a lot of times, right, this community becomes such a low priority because people don't see the connection between the two,
Mm.
So in this world that prioritizes individual success, like, and you did answer this kind of, but I would like to know even more so what you would say, like why it's important to cultivate a sense of belonging, connection within our communities, specifically considering spaces that are like, well, I don't have time for that because I have these individual like successes that I'm shooting for. But I would argue that our success is going to be hindered if we don't have community. And
Mm.
so I would just love to, maybe you have a story, an example, personal, or people so speak into that a little bit. So, you know, I guess I'm trying to like really convince people why this is important,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you will. So,
yeah. I want to share. Yeah, I'll share a story. I do want to share uh, a study that we did on the epidemic of loneliness a few years
mm,
back in apartment life, and it actually, I wrote this down. It talks about that loneliness actually is this innate fear to be known because you can't be loved. And I think if we can admit that and name that, I
mm,
think then we are able to move past the fear of I can't come to this insurmountable thing of being known or getting to know someone. So I'll share a story. This was actually before I took this role. So I've been in apartment life for 8 years, like almost 8 years, like I said. So a year and a half ago, actually, it was almost 2 years now, I guess, in May, 2 years ago, I was going to apply for this role. So I was working in the Texas area, and was looking and deciding to apply for the East Coast area. And everything that I just described in that definition of loneliness, I felt. I was like, this
mm,
is fearful. I don't want to be known. I don't
mm,
deserve to be loved. And so, why should I have this really great thing? And so, I love what you just said about success, because I'm going to tell the story, but if I could tell the story very quickly and say, man, I was just like, well, I know I can do it. And so I applied and I got the job, and now I'm thriving, but I have no one next to me here doing it with me, right? There's no one to share in this with. But that's not what I did. I actually went to my group of friends and was like, hey, this is crazy. I don't live on the East Coast. Kind of a trajectory of changing career after almost, 6.5 years. It's a big change. It's going to make me uncomfortable. I didn't name the things that I was really fearful of, and just really seek guidance and wisdom on, like, should I do this? And I remember one of my friends said, like, hey, it's really not about like if or if not you should do this. It's about just knowing, like, we would support you like in whatever you do. Like, we're here and you are not alone. And I just remember walking through that process. It was a pretty daunting process, but
mm,
just being able to have a sounding board. If
mm,
there's any sports or athletes fans listening, right, you think about like a team. Could you imagine like them playing like right now March Madness is going on, like there's no people in the stands? Like could you
I
imagine
know,
like
right?
they're just there, right? And like we're not watching on TV, people aren't making their brackets. Like there is a direct correlation to just synergy and fans and just the cheerleaders of your life being a part of how well you're doing. Now, one could argue, right, whoever wins March Madness probably don't have the biggest fan base, so that's not a direct correlation. However, I feel like the correlation to having people cheer you on and walk with you in success bears greater fruit of that success being sustainable. Because the minute you're at the top and you have a bad day and it's just you, there's a really dark path that you can go on in
Mhm,
loneliness, in
mhm,
lacking vulnerability, and just trusting yourself, which I don't know about anybody else, but like I'm a really just bad truster of myself. I'm like, my thoughts are not always the best. My ways are not and so to just have me being that compass can be just pretty dangerous. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I would say for me is like, the reason and the desire again and why we innately need to belong. And I think again, doing that without a fan base, doing that without people around you, yeah, it's going to continue to be pretty lonely. And you may bring in all the money in the world from a success standpoint, but I think it's going to lead you into further pits of physical unhealth, spiritual
mhm.
unhealth, and emotional unhealth.
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually that leads me to a completely different question I that I really want to ask you. I was going to lean into this the obvious question, about, God calls us, why is one of our biggest commandments to love our neighbor, right? And honestly, I think that there's pockets of this happening all around the world. We don't see it in the news, but there's all these like really lovely things happening, and there's just the significance around loving your neighbor. And I wanted to ask you why you thought that was such a crucial commandment, and what that means for today's society. But I actually want to go a slightly different direction because, along the lines of that, but what you were just saying about how community helps you become a better leader. So this idea of iron sharpens iron, right? And if you're listening, you're not familiar with that. It's like when you have people around you, like it's mutually beneficial, where you're like helping each other become better.
Mm,
And so sometimes with the idea of loving your neighbor, we look at it as like a one-way thing.
mm,
So I am loving my neighbor, therefore they're benefiting from me. But actually I like looking at it as more this mutual beneficial thing. And so I'm going to lean into the topic of accountability with you. I want you to speak into why this is so stinking important. And let me give you a story or an example of why I'm a strong believer in accountability. So, for me personally, I've formed certain habits in my life where I don't need accountability because they're habits. Once things become habits, it's different. Like drinking water, walking, praying, like all those things have been solidified as habits for me. But whenever you're starting something new, let's say you're working towards something and it's new,
mm,
I think accountability is one of the best gifts we can be given, but people don't like it. They're like, I feel like you bring up the word accountability and they're just kind of like, oh, yeah, whatever, I got this. But I'm going to give you an example. So, I had a small season of my life where I was obsessed with storytelling.
mm,
And I listened to this book, and it was like everyone should do this homework for life, where basically you take just a quick snippet every day. You write like just 2 or 3 sentences about something that happened. It's called Homework for Life. It's almost like journaling little moments in your life that are happening every day. I'm like, that's so dope. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. But I knew I wasn't going to start a new habit without accountability partner. I reached out to my friend. Her and I were doing it together. Every day at the end of the day, we text each other, did you get your homework for life done? Yep, got it done, got it done. The minute we were like, after a few weeks, we're like, you think you got this? And I'm like, yeah, I think I got this. I don't think we need to check it anymore. I completely stopped doing it. I have not done my homework for life since I stopped having an accountability partner. I am not kidding you. And so I think there is something so significant about this concept of iron sharpens iron and accountability. And again, there's the whole vulnerability thing you talked about, the willingness to be like, you know what, like I didn't get to this today, but having someone who's supporting you on that journey. Um, why is accountability so important? Why does it work so well? Why are we so resistant to it?
Yeah, I think it's so good. So here's the question I always ask people. So I love that you asked me this because I would say, like, if I had an adverb to describe or adjective to describe my name, Alexis, it'd be accountability because I just crave it. So here's the thing I always ask people when they're like, "Oh, I don't need accountability." I would say, "Well, would you say that you're disciplined or we need discipline?" Right? I ask parents, "Do you discipline your children?" Well, no parent would tell me no. Most of them, when I ask, people like, "Oh, you don't need accountability," I would say, "Well, do you need discipline?" Right? So accountability broken down is the word account. So short accounts happen from doing something over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so from a habit perspective, to have the accountability, there needs to be an account that you actually did that habit. So you cannot just account for yourself to say, "Oh yeah, today I did this," right? It's, hey, when you go to the bank, you put your money in an account, it's there, it's secure, it's safe. Someone is checking and balancing from the bank's perspective, right? You don't just like have your money at home and, again, people can have their own accounts at home, of course, but I'm talking to just kind of normal 2025. We all have our money in bank accounts. And so accountability to me is going back to that like mentality of like a dog on a leash. Like there has to be guidance and there has to be like linking arms to say, "Hey, I'm going to commit to this." It doesn't devalue your commitment in any way, and it doesn't devalue you as a person to say that you can't do it. But man, the strength in numbers to say, "Hey, we're going to do this together, and I'm going to check in and you're going to check in." And I don't know, I just feel like that the account part, the short accounts, and having someone intentionally doing that with you, just brings it a lot further. And I would argue that we have chosen discipline over accountability to say, "Well, I'm pretty disciplined, I'm going to give every day, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
in those things." But that accountability piece adds that, "Hey, I'm going to make sure that this actually happens," or "I'm going to make sure if it doesn't happen, I've shared this, and so that tomorrow we'll start back over and kind of course correct." That discipline just innately tells you, "Hey, I'm going to do this, I'm wanting to do this," but desire fuels the discipline. So the minute you're tired and you've had a crap day, your discipline's going out. Think about people who have those cheat meals. It's like, "Hey, you know what? Today was just really tough. Last night I was craving McDonald's. I haven't had McDonald's in like 5 years." And I was like, "I got to have McDonald's tonight." And I didn't have it. Guess why? I was like, "Hey, to accountability, I'm really wanting to crave McDonald's and I'm really just probably need to eat like something green, leafy, some good protein." Like my body actually needs that more than the desire. So I think, again, it's back to that, the accountability. If your desire fails away, or you're really crazy at work, or from a leadership perspective, then I think that's kind of where that accountability comes in. And, as a leader, I'm always desiring accountability from humility. I'm always very humble about, "Hey, here's the decisions I'm making. Here's what I'm thinking," because I want to bring others in around me for their wisdom, their sound judgment, them to be able to kind of provide some guidance. And again, if it's just a party of one, you're just kind of running that show yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I like thinking about it from that perspective of the desire. If that's fueling, like, the discipline, then that's not going to be very reliable. So I'm going to wrap up with, I will give you a chance to tell people where they could find you and whatnot.
Yeah.
But before that, we're going to have a little fun. I did not prep you for this, but this is going to be a little fun for our audience. So, it is related kind of, but, Alexis and I have lots of soapboxes we could get like super passionate about. But one of the first times, I had met Alexis, I had told her I wanted her to be on my podcast to talk about community, but she made the joke of maybe we should start a dating podcast. Okay. And so I would so regret this moment if we did not take a moment to talk about our advice in the dating world. Okay, so I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I know exactly. And it's going to be super relevant. So, listeners, like, stay tapped in because this is going to be so valuable and relevant to community. Because I'm just going to tell you straight up that when I think about some of the things that I've learned in my life and my journey of where I find the healthiest, most fruitful dating relationships is directly related to where I find the most healthy, fruitful community.
Mm.
I'm not kidding.
Mm.
So I have my two answers. I'm going to let you go first though. If you were to share some insight into like what are the most important things you should look for when you're looking for a date in dating relationships and a partner, like what do you think is the most important, some of the most important things, like one or two, and then I'm going to share my two, and if you take my two, then I'm not going to share two more.
Okay, got it, got it. All right. Number one, I'm so big on this. Intentionality. I'm gonna talk about this for just a quick second. I'm not talking like, he or she makes a plan, and the plan feels good and it sounds fun, it sounds romantic. I'm talking like, hey, I know that you had a meeting today. It was pretty big. How'd that go? Or like,
Mhm.
hey, I know you've been really trying to run a mile. How far'd you get today? Or, hey,
Mhm.
I know you've been trying to go to bed with your phone, not next to you in the other room. Like, how's that been for you? Like, how's that been going? So
Mhm.
I'm talking about literally finding craters and spaces in your cracks of who you are and them wanting to enter into those. Not like
Mhm.
the what's up text, how's your day? Like we gotta come with some like real intentional combo.
Mhm.
And that again must come with vulnerability. It's gotta come with you being willing to share, you being, going out of your way, looking external, not internal to what's going on with the person that you're dating, to be able to get outside of your own world and kind of enter in. So that's the first thing. So if you're not intentional,
Mhm.
go ahead, guys or girls, just drop them. Okay. Second thing is you said this, so I'm gonna kind of see how I can say it differently.
Mhm.
Anyone that I have dated or met, or even talking to friends dating, if you do not have 3 or 4 people at the top of your list that you can name that you have like checked in with, done something with, they know what's going on in your life that week, we have to have a different conversation. Like there should be people, again, it doesn't need to be droves of people. I'll say 3, 4 max, but just that are doing life alongside of this person. They are, and not just like, yeah, I saw my friend 8 months ago, and like they kind of know when they've been annoyed, when they've hit rock bottom, when they got upset because the driver got over on them. I'm just talking like the daily interaction, the daily accountability, the daily discipline, from that person's life. And so I would say, in short, that's community, but just having an insulated group that is doing life with them, that they are known, loved, and seen by someone other than themselves. Man, it just provides such a fruitful dating experience. And you get to find the joys of being known, loved on a journey of known, loved, and seen by whoever you're dating, and if that's not
Mhm.
there, I think you then move towards a lot of absorption from the person you're dating, because now
Mhm.
there's chairs around you. Imagine 3 or 4 chairs in a circle. That person has to fill each of those chairs. And that is
Mhm.
just hard. I'm just not equipped or here to do
Yeah. That's so good. Okay, you did not take mine, but that's so good. Okay, and let me just add to that first answer. Like I went through a season where I was like, man, I have so many quote unquote friends, and then someone asked me, "Well, do any of them pour back into you, or are you just always in this like giving, giving?" And I will say when I started really even, I mean, that's so relevant to dating, but even with friendships, I started saying like where like who's like intentional in those ways of like saying like, okay, this is really important to you, and checking in on that and how's that going, and those things, that intentionality, and I would add like thoughtfulness almost goes right with that. So that's really good. Okay, I was expecting you to take one of mine. Okay, so my two, I love that, Alexis. Okay, the first one that I'm going to say, actually, I think you do amazingly in your organization as a leader. But in dating, one of my top things is there has to be safe spaces.
Mm,
That person, your heart has to be safe. You have to be able to be transparent and vulnerable, and your heart be safe, because for many listeners probably who have been hurt because you opened up in an unsafe space,
mhm.
like that's really really hard. And so my big thing now is like safe spaces is a safe space to to speak freely and so on and so forth. And I would say even too, that's been the most refreshing thing for me in the dating world, but also in leaders and organizations, I think you do an amazing job, Alexis, in creating safe spaces for people you work with to fully be themselves.
Mm.
And that's so, so important in a healthy community. And so I would add that as my second point in the dating space. Like, I watch my parents do this. They authentically are themselves around each other.
Mm.
And if you can't fully be yourself, then that's a non-starter. And so the freedom and how refreshing it is to be in a space where you could fully be yourself and it's a safe space, and you know who else you could fully be yourself with, and it's always a safe space with Jesus. Okay,
Yep.
no humans are Jesus, right? None of us are perfect,
Yep.
but it's like when you when people disappoint you, I know I always have that safe space. But in a dating relationship, you're choosing that.
Yeah.
To me, those are non-negotiables right there. Anyways, this is fun.
So good.
I'll talk more about
I
the
can't,
dating world with you any day.
cannot wait to come
Yeah.
back. Yes. So
Yeah. There's so many people out here navigating. Speaking of loving your neighbors, I get in these types of conversations with people all the time. It's real, it's relevant.
yeah.
Um, but that's some good. Those are four. If anybody walks with anything from this podcast, you take those four things. It doesn't matter if you're dating, if you're married, or whatever, you need those four things. If you're married and you don't have those four things, work on
Go
it.
find them. Yeah.
Work at it. Talk about it. Find some community to help you work at it. So
Yes.
no, this is
Yes.
good. This is good. This has been so fun. I always leave everyone with like Coach Autumn's tip. And my tip's just straight because I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna let you close it out, Alexis. But have an accountability partner for one goal in your life.
Mm.
Start there. Start simple. Sometimes we need the simplest things. Think of one thing you've been saying, I'm gonna do this, and you haven't done it, decide to do it and have a rapid accountability partner and check in every day at first, because if you don't do that, it's going to be too easy to not to. So
Mm.
that is my simple tip for you all. Alexis, tell people where they could find you.
Yes. Okay. So you can find me on LinkedIn. So Alexis Browning on LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram. So it is _Browning, BROWNING 90. So on Instagram or on LinkedIn, you can find me. And so thank you so much, Autumn, for having me. This was just a blast. And thanks everybody for listening as well.
Absolutely. Until next time, stay aligned. Thank you for tuning in to the Aligned Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Autumn, your guide on this journey to shalom or wholeness. Ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation? Head over to autumnswain.com to learn more and to dive deeper into the world of aligned living. Until next time, stay aligned.